Welcome back to the Indian Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raj Balkaran. More importantly, you are looking for inspired insight, which you can apply to everyday life. And perhaps you're also looking to hear a tale or two. Well, you're in the right place. Well, I think that there are a great many of us who are struggling in a variety of ways. Some of those ways are on the person level. There might be issues in one's personal life, in one's relational life, in one's work life, etc., etc. But what I'm noticing more and more is that by virtue of the connectedness of our globe, a great many individuals are ensconced in the suffering that is happening in certain places on the globe at present. We have at our disposal front row seats to an atrocious train wreck that entails mass slaughter and trauma on various sides. And really, without question, these are troubled times. So I wish to perhaps offer some perspective, 30,000 foot view perspective on how to navigate such times. Perhaps this might be of use to a great many of you. By the way, speaking of a great many of you, it's actually heartwarming to see the podcast sort of take off slow and steady. I think this is episode 8, if I recall. And, there's a sizable listenership already. So here we are. By all means, if this is valuable to you, please consider liking, sharing, etc., so that we can continue producing this hopefully helpful content. Now, it is actually a fallacy to think that we are worse off than we've ever been. Quite the contrary. We've made phenomenal progress as a civilization, as a culture. And 100 years ago, a short 100 years ago, a great many people and peoples had much fewer rights, had much less range of motion. There is an incredible amount of work left to do. But really and truly look back as well as forward and look at how far we've come on a number of levels. Many of us on the globe do not struggle to survive. But because we do not struggle to survive and we have yet to learn how to thrive, we have a lot of time and energy on our hands. And much of that is spent gawking at the horrors and the issues afoot. And certainly it is important to stay informed. Some of us are called to ameliorate, to support the various issues afoot, and most of us are not. Most of us have other dharmas, other purposes, other vying duties. And so we've actually, as a globe, with glaring exceptions perhaps, have never been overall so well placed, and yet there's still a great deal of suffering. The difference is that we've never before had access to this great suffering that's happening in faraway places. We have the play by play of so much that's going on around the world. And so injustice, brutality, suffering of various sorts has always existed. These are variations on ancient themes, but we've never before been so aware of what is taking place behind closed doors in various organizations, in various hierarchies, in various conflicts. And so keep that in mind. Yeah. Now, the question is, how do we deal with it? Perhaps a greater question is it ours to deal with? Is it our place to take on literally the troubles of the world? Is that something that a human being is called to do? Can the human being handle such pressure, such pain, such turmoil? Certainly not. We are limited. Our time on this earth is limited. Our energies, our resources are limited. And thankfully, the range of our purpose is also limited. What we are here to do. what we are here to accomplish, who we are here to serve. This too is limited. And it is of use to focus on what is ours to handle, what is ours to manage. These, without question, are dark times in many ways. Although, as I mentioned at the outset, the backdrop, the white noise of our globe is one of progress, without question. Not for everybody at present, but overarchingly, the stock is trending up. Now, that being said, we are not called to be ensconced in the horrors of war, although we are called to bear witness to the darkness of our times. But when the times are dark, are we called to be enveloped by the darkness? No. When the times are dark, we are called to kindle our flames. We are little lanterns, as if lanterns in which the flame of the soul abides. We are called to kindle our flame, share our light with others, attract other light seekers, and this is how we brighten the world amid the darkness upon us. Let us not be consumed, subsumed by it. Yes, how does one do this? Well, there are a variety of strategies for mindfulness, relaxation, but to my mind, the lowest hanging fruit, and at the same time, one of the most powerful strategies is breath work, breath control. Pranayama is the Sanskrit term. Whether you are working on your breath with respect to Indic paradigms and Indic wisdom or not, either way, breathing is something that we all need to do and that we all continually do. But do we really know how to do it? Similar to eating, consumption, nourishment. We all need nourishment, but do we know how to nourish ourselves? I think there are a variety of statistics available, particularly in the Western world, which emphatically declare that we do not. Do we know how to breathe? Do we really understand and embody the breath? Do we grok the connection between breath and emotion? Do we understand that where there is deep breath, there is no anxiety? And where there is anxiety, there is no deep breath? Are we aware that literally by manipulating and lengthening and deepening and widening the breath, we gain mastery over our emotions? When was the last we breathed deeply, intentionally? So, more than just an expression, take a deep breath, spend time daily breathing and bringing awareness, bringing prana, bringing life force into your vessel along with the air, the oxygen. And beyond the breath and breath work, I think it's very useful to take as your guru, as your instructor, as your exemplar, as your paragon of wisdom, the tree. Do not forget the wisdom of the tree. Well, perhaps you never learned the wisdom of the tree, but unconsciously you know the wisdom of the tree. Unconsciously you understand that trees are full of presence and peace. What do I mean by that? Well, who knows? Maybe I'll start with a little bit of a tale and then we'll see where it goes, shall we? Once the great sage Mārkaṇḍeya had been in deep meditation for eons when a great storm swept the earth. Well, we all know what it's like to have storms sweeping the earth, creating a great deal of calamity and difficulty. We're living through a number of storms these days. But this was an ordinary storm. This was the deluge that marked the end of the age. Well, there is no real apocalypse. This is not a linear universe. We have a linear left brain and we have a cyclical, circular right brain. And the circle has no beginning nor end. So the question as to whether or not the cosmos is linear or the cosmos is cyclical. And to my knowledge, there's only one prominent and credible physicist who is making this argument, Roger Penrose. But that's a story for another day. But the question as to whether or not the cosmos is linear or cyclical is very important, because perhaps the problems, the various observational anomalies that affront the theory of the Big Bang, perhaps they arise because we are imposing a linear mentality onto a cyclical entity. If everything within the universe cycles, if galaxies cycle, if lives cycle, if atoms cycle, if cells cycle, if seasons cycle, if everything within the universe cycles, perhaps the universe itself does. Anyhow, this deluge at the end of the age, well, the end of this current age, well, the deluge happens, the dissolution happens, and then there's a new age. And similarly, when we think about the dawn of this age, the dawn arises on the back of the dissolution of the last age, right? Ad infinitum, forever and ever, amen, in either direction, forward and backward, right? So the the deluge marked the end of the age. The destruction of all things was upon him, the great sage Mārkaṇḍeya. The water soon enveloped the earth in preparation for cosmic dissolution. And the function of dissolution is enacted, is performed, is discharged by none other than Shiva, the great god Shiva, dancing all things, uh, annihilating all things in his dance of bliss. What a glorious image. More about that another day. But, having just come out of his meditation, Mārkaṇḍeya wasn't at all frightened. Part of his meditation involves deep breathing. So he was there was no anxiety there. He was abiding in the witness consciousness. The witness is that space from which you truly act. When you are in ego, when you're in your patterning and your emotionality, you think you act, you think you respond, but you don't, you react. But if there's a stimulus and you have the ability to create space and hold space between the stimulus and the reaction, then it's not a reaction, it's a response. The extent to which you abide in the witness is the extent to which you truly act, is the extent to which you are free. And we are all bound by the reactions which issue forth compulsively, unthinkingly, instinctively. But anyhow, Mārkaṇḍeya just came out of his cosmic trance, and he was awake, abiding in the witness, and not at all frightened. He was centered and ready to embrace whatever came. He simply marveled at the great torrents of rain being pelted down from the perturbed heavens. Soon a wave swept him up in its whirling fury and carried him off. As far as the eye could see, water covered the earth. He was carried by the currents to the top of a massive wave. And atop this wave was held mysteriously in place a great banyan tree. He thought to himself, well, certainly this is no ordinary banyan tree, as marvelous and extraordinary and majestic and even spiritual as banyan trees are in general. This is no ordinary banyan tree. It's rooted not in soil, but it's rooted in water, in this great expanse. And how could it possibly abide here? How could it possibly survive here? How could it possibly be so still amid this tumult? This tree thrives. The mysterious banyan in the middle of the ocean was glowing with great splendor, a sight to behold. To Mārkaṇḍeya's great delight, the current that carried him delivered him to its base. Mesmerized, he approached the tree and noticed that upon one of its branches sat a smiling child. A child, beautiful babe, resplendent in the branches of the tree. Mārkaṇḍeya approached the radiant child in awe, in wonder, wondering if this was a dream, a vision. Is this real? He reached to pick up the child, but just as he did so, the child took a deep breath in. Now, Mārkaṇḍeya found himself swept up again, as though by another great wave. But this time he was carried out to the curtains of air being sucked into the child's mouth. Either the child's mouth grew in size or Mārkaṇḍeya had shrunk, he couldn't tell, because before he knew it, he was able to comfortably enter the mouth of the child as if it were the mouth of some mystical cave where great masters go to become enlightened. Once inside the mouth of the strange child, Mārkaṇḍeya beheld the entire surface of the earth as it was before the flood. He beheld the jungles and valleys, the mountains and plains. He cast his gaze upwards and was inebriated at the expanse of the sky, teeming with stars and galaxies before him. He was somehow able to see the sun in all its glory, and the brimming moon in its fullness, and the vast array of stars and planets lighting up the night sky. Further yet, his gaze met the galactic expanse, making up the universe, and all in the mouth of this child? Mārkaṇḍeya soon realized he must be standing in the mouth of the great god Vishnu, the preserver, he who pervades all things. Now, there are many tales about Vishnu slumbering upon his serpent couch on the oceanic abyss, a glorious and powerful image. Perhaps that tale will be told another day. But at this time, the cosmic child exhaled. Right? Remember, we're talking about the power of breath. And just as Mārkaṇḍeya had been drawn rapidly into the body of the child, so too he was thrust back out of his mouth, back into the presence of the majestic banyan. Mārkaṇḍeya sat at the base of the tree, taking solace from the great banyan, even in the midst of the great deluge. He meditated upon the presence of the tree that held within its boughs that divine presence. This very beautiful image, something ancient, sanatana, something eternal and yet youthful. What a brilliant image. This divine child. He is meditating really on the power of the tree. This vignette, really, this is Mārkaṇḍeya is the only soul who actually is able to survive pralaya, the cosmic dissolution. He has this blessing, right? He's ever youthful. Yes, we'll tell the story of how Mārkaṇḍeya became ever youthful in another podcast, but he has this power. So really, he very much represents the witness, not just the spiritual witness that we all have access to, but it's a mythologization thereof, wherein he witnesses the dissolution of all things. He witnesses pralaya. He witnesses the ending of the world itself. So Mārkaṇḍeya is really a very potent symbol of sagehood. Yes. And here comes some of his reflection on the power and the presence and the wisdom of the tree. Trees are peaceful. They're silent. They're still. They're present. I mean, who would you be? Can you imagine? You might think it cheeky or silly or counterintuitive or even outlandish. You take as your guru a tree. But pay careful attention. Anyone who's open energetically in the presence of a tree fully understands that trees are, I wouldn't say sentient in the way that humans are sentient, but they have tremendous knowing power. Right? There's presence there. They're aware. They're peaceful, they're silent, they're still, they're present. And they make suitable sites not only for spiritual practice, for yogic practice, but suitable sites for yogic perfection. Many a sage has attained enlightenment beneath a tree. Most famously, perhaps, the Indian prince Siddhartha Gautama, who renounced and found enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, more famously known as the Buddha, the enlightened one. He was one of many Buddhas, one of many enlightened beings. The tree is both symbol and exemplar of profound wisdom. Humans can learn much from their majesty. For humans to be fulfilled, they need to continually grow. Without growth, there's no fulfillment. There's only stagnation. The tree is taller and taller each day than it was before. It's always growing. Yes. It stretches upwards and outwards towards the expanse of the sky. The sky represents what? The space of ideas, of ideals, of truths. This mysterious expanse overhead, right? Expansion. It is the plane of the heavens, of divinity, of the beyond. And the tree is wise to stretch itself, becoming more than it was before, in an effort to touch the sky, and we are wise to follow suit. In addition to being a plane of magic, if you will, and wonder, mystery, and majesty, the sky is home to the sun, source of all heat and light. The sun represents the self within all beings, that spiritual spark of awareness, animation, grace, which propels all life. As the tree ceaselessly receives the sun's grace, so too should we. In our goings and comings on the earth, do we take the time to gaze upon the sky? Do you make space for wonder when you behold the sun and moon and stars? Trees know well the wisdom of communing with the sky, yet they're not quite operating with their head in the clouds, so to speak, are they? This is only half the equation. They hold within them this really extraordinarily powerful creative tension. This combination, the collaboration of opposites, right? Trees always going upwards, is it? Trees also always going downwards. The secret to the tree's growth lies in its opposed impulses. Its impulse to reach up into the sky is matched and made possible by its capacity to burrow down, deep down into the earth. The tree's growth is literally dependent upon its groundedness. And this holds within it great wisdom. Are you grounded? Are you capable of being grounded? Do you know what it feels like to be grounded? A scattered state really is the ill of our age. The ailment of our age is scatteredness, and in its many, many, many manifestations. The tree's growth is literally dependent upon its groundedness. And this holds within it the following wisdom. The tree gains support, stability by digging deep, its roots reaching toward the center of the earth. The tree is testament to the fecundity of the earth, whereby it grows. It digs deep into the cool, moist earth, whereby it derives hydration, nourishment. It is not only fed by the earth, but it also nourishes the earth with its fallen leaves and fruit. The symbolism of a tree calls us towards symbiotic participation in the earth's grand network of life. The tree's downward pull towards the earth, we can think of it this way. We can think of these two pulls as archetypally masculine and feminine, right? The tree's downward pull towards the earth represents its feminine aspect. This is why in last week's episode with the inverted Eden, what we were paying attention to was this masculine sky god who is transcendent, holy from the earth and humanity. And in the inversion, really, we see that divinity has to do with the earthly, the feminine, the bodily, the act of eating, the sacred serpent. Yes? Same symbolism here we are alluding to. Right? So the tree's downward pull perhaps represents its feminine aspect, while its upward pull towards the sky represents its masculine aspect. This is why in so many iterations of Indo-European myth, we have a sky god and an earth goddess, and they are often somehow connected or even paired, such as in Greek myth, for example, Uranus, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth goddess, who beget a great many beings. The power of the tree lies in its ability to integrate masculine and feminine. This is a very important idea. This is alchemy. When you're able to integrate your masculine and feminine aspects. Now, there's much to be said about this. These aspects are far beyond sexes, even genders or gender roles. What we're referring to here is a chemical process that entails bringing into collaboration and cooperation aspects of self, right? Uh, with respect to the subtle body, this is where the right masculine solar channel, the Pingala, uh, connects with, cooperates with, is balanced by the left feminine lunar channel, the Ida, right? And when the energy is able to flow in the central channel, the Shushumna, well, that's a state of wholeness and balance and supreme power, sovereignty, right? So the power of the tree lies in its ability to integrate masculine and feminine. Its upward growth is dependent upon its downward growth, and its downward growth is equally dependent upon its upward growth. It holds within it this great paradoxical wisdom. The tree is whole, the tree is complete, the tree is at peace. This is why we're reflecting on the wisdom of the tree today, because so many clients and students with whom I'm in conversation express concern about much of what is happening on the world stage. And we discuss the extent to which we are called to be ensconced in such things. And we also discuss strategies whereby one can remain grounded and witness and bear witness to the atrocities afoot in a way which does not damage self, in a way which does not erode our capacity to fulfill our primary duties in this life, our dharma, in a way whereby we are not enveloped by the darkness, but we can meet it and even greet it with the light we cultivate through practice. Right? And that is a peaceful state. This vignette, this tale of the great sage Mārkaṇḍeya, really this mythic motif more than a tale of Mārkaṇḍeya, and this rumination, this deliberation, this meditation upon the wisdom of the tree was actually penned in connection to Vrikshasana in the stories behind the poses, tree pose, right? And the commentary that ensues is as follows. Tree pose is, to some, a simple pose, but for those who know the great wisdom behind it, it is among the most profound of yoga poses. Poses, unintended, are not about performance. They are about experience. They're not about how you look. They're about what you experience. Yes? In this pose, one's hands are clasped, closing the circuitry of the energy of the heart. Also, one's two legs become as if a single grounding rod connecting with the earth. Okay. I believe last week we talked about Shiva and Shivratri, and Shivratri occurring when the sun is in the constellation, the lunar asterism, the nakshatra Purva Bhadrapada. And the symbol deity of this nakshatra is a one-legged goat. It's not really a goat, a one-legged entity, the unborn one, who's one-legged, form of Bhairava, representing sort of this unity, right? This unity emerging from the earth. So, the two legs become like a single grounding rod connecting with the earth. The upright plane between heaven and earth is divine. Think about this. Think about this very carefully. Right? There's vertical motion and this horizontal motion. And of course, there's everything in between. But the vertical plane is nothing mundane. Who or what possibly abides in that plane? Okay. Think of evolution. Generally speaking, the more evolved a species, at least in mammalian life, the more upright it is. Right? The more upright a creature is, the more aware it is. And similarly, humans, generally speaking, the more upright you sit, the more upright you stand, the more aware you are. Certainly, you're more aware while standing than you are while lying down. So there's this really profound and fascinating connection between verticalness and awareness that seems to be encoded in the very process of evolution of species on this planet. Humans alone, I mean, think about this. Humans alone have upright posture, and humans alone have sentience, or sentience as we normally think of sentience. Certainly, humans are not alone in having awareness in general, but to have this level of self-awareness seems to be part and parcel of having this level of uprightness. There's an interplay between the two. Right? The most upright creatures, humans, possess the potential of the greatest awareness, divine awareness. This divine plane between heaven and earth is occupied only by humans and perhaps upright cobras and trees. It is the plane of Kundalini rising, of spiritual ascension, of touching the sky while rooted on earth. I hope you've enjoyed this content of Fraction as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. By all means, do give it a like, do give it a share. Feel free to reach out with requests. Feel free to reach out to study with me if you'd like. I run the Indian Wisdom School, which I founded, indianwisdomschool.com. Feel free to attend a retreat with me in person. Be more than happy to facilitate your learning in some way, shape, or form. Until next time, keep well and keep contemplating the power of the upright plane. Bye for now. Namaste.